welcome to everybody. Thank you for joining us today. And of course, the topic today is going to be talking about cybersecurity and what you can do to protect yourself and your company from this ever-increasing threat that's out there. Interestingly enough, Mandy and I were actually in Kansas City last week visiting with Robert Hershevitz. You may know Robert Hershevitz from the Shark Tank. He's got a very large MSSP, managed security service provider, and they do about $1.8 billion in security. So obviously they're doing very large accounts. But the same thing that applies to the big people also applies to smaller businesses. And even when they apply multi-million-dollar layers of security, people can still get hacked. So the number one weakness comes down to 80% of the hacks come through from employees inadvertently allowing the hackers in or exposing credentials. So what we want to cover today is how can you protect yourself and prevent the hackers from gaining access to your business. And there's some simple things that you can do. So what I'm going to go do is jump in and share my screen, and then we're going to go through and have a look at all the different ways that you can protect yourself and what to look out for. Alrighty. So seven most important things that every CEO and every person involved in a company should be aware of. So phishing. What is phishing? Basically, the guys are pretending to be somebody else and they're coming in. And this is the easiest way that hackers can actually scam you. And what do they want from you? Well, first of all, your identity, your privileges, and your authority. What do they do with your identity? Well, once they've got it, they can file fake tax returns, access your credit cards, register for new credit cards, open lines of credits, home title theft, access Medicare. And what do they do with your privileges? Well, this is also where it gets scary. They can download all your emails, your contacts, your calendar events. Even more scary than that, accessing your computer network, get administrative access. They can copy human resources data. And what do they do with your authority? Well, they buy gift cards. They can get a vendor to update payment information, convince human resources to send data to you, add new vendors for payment, have your team wire money. And we've seen this in a couple of different ways on real life scenarios where hundreds of thousands of dollars have been transferred with wire transfer fraud. So what we're going to cover today is how to recognize a phish, how to protect your passwords, keeping your Office 365 account safe, and avoid smishing. And if you don't know what smishing is, listen in. We're going to be covering smishing as well as phishing. And we'll cover multi-factor authentication and how to avoid them bypassing the multi-factor authentication, and little tricks to know how you've been hacked. So let's start off with how to recognize a phish. Well, there's a couple of different types of phishing. The first one is a general, and they just send it out to everybody, pretty vague. They'll use common vendors. It's pretty easy to detect. When you get to spear phishing, it gets a little bit more focused. They're now going to spend the time to personalize it specifically to you, and it becomes harder to detect. And then if they're going after the chief executive, they're now going to be very targeted. They're going to spend the time to get detailed knowledge. And this is the hardest to recognize. But at the end of the day, they all work in the same way, and they're believable. So this is one example. And you'll see over here, it says that it's from Amazon and they need you to update your payment. You click on the link. The next thing that they're going to do is that they're going to say that it's urgent, that they've detected some unusual activity, and if you say yes, then your card's going to be authorized to be used straight away. But of course, you don't recognize those transactions. But if you say no, then it's going to place a fraud claim. Well, if you click on one of those, you're actually giving the bad guys your information. Now, it's emotional. They might say something like this: Office 365, a low severity alert has been detected. Investigate. The whole idea behind each of these is to get you to give away your credentials. So first thing is, whenever you get something like this, slow down, hover over the links to see if you can see any details. And whatever you do, do not click the link, and never ever use the phone number that's in the email. So one of the things that you can do is, obviously, if you look at the email that it's coming from, if it's coming from an address that you don't recognize, that is obviously it's a red alert. The second thing is, it's going to have a sense of urgency, action required. Well, maybe not. The next thing is, if they're not that clever, they're going to say something like, dear valued customer, we are seeing them improve, so they're now making sure they get your name. But obviously, if it just says valued customer or something like that, that's a giveaway. The next thing to look for is spelling mistakes. You are required to update anything that doesn't quite make sense. That's an obvious giveaway to somebody whose English is not their first language. Then the next thing, and this is very important, if you hover over the link, it says that it's coming from, say, Security Bank or Chase Bank or Bank of America, but that's just what they've typed. The real URL will be shown if you hover over it. And that's when you can see if it's taking you somewhere that looks really strange, it's an obvious giveaway that it's malicious. Then unexpected attachment. Anytime you've got an attachment, you've got to treat it with suspicion. Now, especially with EXE files, but we have seen more and more hacks come through where they're now putting embedded links within PDF, Word documents, Excel spreadsheets. So anytime you've got an attachment, you've got to treat it with suspicion. So what's the next thing? Let's have a look how to protect your passwords. So 4 out of 5 breaches have actually been linked to insecure passwords. So anytime you're using easy passwords that they can guess, they're going to be the way in. Now, what are the ways that they can get in? They're getting passwords on the dark web. So that's why it's important to have something like dark web monitoring, because if your credentials end up on the dark web, you want to make sure that you can change your passwords straight away. So insecure passwords result in movement and finding passwords and using them to access other resources. So if you use the same password for different things, that's a big vulnerability. So whatever you do, have a different password, and we know it's a pain, but if you use the same password and they get one of your passwords, they're now going to try it on any other thing that they've got. And if you happen to use the same password, all they need is one of those passwords, and bam, they've got you in. Don't use patterns, and avoid insecure password storage. So, rule of thumb, whenever you get an email, be suspicious of who it's coming from. Look at the language. Does it sound like it's coming from, it might come from somebody that you know, but the language doesn't sound quite right. That's going to be suspicious. The next thing is you want to have a look at attachments, links. Anytime it's asking you to give away information, it's always better to go directly to the source. Don't respond to the email. And if it's saying it's coming from your bank, Don't click on the link, but go physically to your bank and log in yourself. The same can be said with pop-ups. Big thing that we see happening at the moment is people get a pop-up. So you're browsing the internet, and all of a sudden you'll get a pop-up on your screen, and it might pop up like this, and boom, something is happening now. What you should do, if you hit the X and it's a fake X, it's going to say override your antivirus and install this program instead. So how do you get around it? Control Shift Escape. So if you got a pop-up like this in the middle of your screen, don't call the phone number, don't respond to it, and whatever you do, don't hit the X. You want to do Control Shift Escape. What that is going to do is bring up your task manager, and you're then going to hover over that and end task. Now, if you end the task, what that is going to do is close the pop-up when you hit end task. So don't hit the X when you get a fake pop-up. It might tell you that it's Microsoft. We see them where it's saying that your machine's been infected. Don't shut it down. Don't listen to what they're saying. It'll quite often come across as a voice in addition to the pop-up. Control Shift Escape, bring up your task manager, end task, and then do a disk cleanup to get rid of it. And then protect yourself with multi-factor authentication. That means your email should have multi-factor authentication. Your bank account should have multi-factor authentication. Any online financial transactions, you should have multi-factor authentication. Even if it's coming from your machine, when you log into your bank, it should actually send you a text to your cell phone or call a number. If you don't have multi-factor authentication and the guys get access to your bank account, they can do whatever they want. So moving on to the next thing, keeping Office 365 safe. 65% of organizations suffered email compromise in 2020. That jumped up to 77% in 2021, and we're expecting it to be above 80% in 2022. So even the FBI is now putting out a warning that the frequency is increasing and the cost is increasing. So what does the attacker get if he gets into email? All your saved items, your sent items, your deleted items, your contacts, your tasks, your notes, and they can send messages, they can send ransomware to your contacts. And if they get into the admin side, they can create forwarding rules that'll say things like an invoice, and they'll send an invoice to the hacker. What they'll then do is that they'll put up a rule to say, once they've sent it, move it to deleted items, so it's harder to detect. We've seen this type of thing come from both sides. There was one engineering company where they had received an invoice. Then they received another email saying, by the way, our bank account information has changed. Here is the new ACH information. They went to the bank. They filled out the information. They wire transferred the funds across. And about 3 days later, they got hold of the company and said, when are you going to ship? And the company said, well, we haven't received the payment. They went backwards and forwards for a day, only to discover that the funds had actually gone to the bad guys, went to the Isle of Man, the money was gone. The FBI got involved, but at the end of the day, the customer was out money. We also saw it on the other side where the customer had sent an invoice out via email. And what then happened when the person received it, the bad guys watched that transaction and they then spoofed that person. In other words, they copied the signature, they copied everything identical to that, and they sent new information to say, by the way, our banking information has changed. And when that person went to pay them, the funds, instead of coming to them, went somewhere else. And they're still fighting that today and trying to get that money back. And that was $160,000. So this is happening all the time. These are real life scenarios that are going on. Whenever it comes to financial situations, always verify if something is changing. Speak to the person, verify the routing number, verify banking information. But whatever you do, don't respond to the phone number that's in the email. Make sure that you've got the correct information. So set up multi-factor authentication. And this is so important. Don't log into your Office 365 from non-work computers, because all of your work-related computers are generally going to have security and they're going to have protection on them. But if you log in from a home computer, you run the risk that if you've been compromised, you may not even know about it. So you should never get your emails on a non-work-related computer or phone. Don't use free or public Wi-Fis. Always make sure that you've got a hotspot. You can have it on your phone and use that. Don't trust the public Wi-Fi. So moving on to the next thing, avoid smishing. And you go, what the heck is smishing? Well, smishing is just phishing, but now it's coming through to your cell phone. They'll start asking questions. Would you respond? Now, that it may not have anything suspicious in the first place, but they're just testing to see, are you real? And they've now estimated that there's 1 billion cell phone numbers with people's names out there on the dark web. So the chances are that somewhere along the line, someone's got your name and your cell phone number. And again, FCC have issued a threat. This is real. It's happening right now. And why are they doing it? Simple. They're trying to get access to your social media, your bank account, shipping, phone apps, and they'll install malware. And what do they do with it? Well, once they get in, if they've got access, they can transfer money, make fraudulent purchases, and it starts off just by getting a simple text to your phone, and you open the link and a phishing page loads, and then you enter your email and your password, or it might ask for your bank details or a multi-factor code. So as we said previously, you've got to have multi-factor authentication. So how are the hackers getting around it? They're now sending a text to your cell phone, and what they're doing is that they are jumping in between so that they can actually get the multi-factor authentication. So never respond to any text when it comes through, and if it's got a link, never share personal or financial information, especially over a text message, and always verify with another form of communication. Don't go to where they're telling you to. Go to a known website. If it says it's coming from Facebook, log into your Facebook account. If it says it's coming from Bank of America, go to Bank of America. And obviously, just look for misspellings and grammatical errors. Numbers being spoofed. We saw this happening over summer, where people were getting text messages saying they were from TXU and that their electricity was going to be cut off if they didn't pay. So, and it made it look like it was coming from a 281 number. So people were trusting it, and they were making payments or logging into their bank account by clicking on the link. So, and even if it's coming from a friend, you've got to be careful, because if they've been compromised, then it's going to look like it's coming from them, but it's not. And of course, Microsoft, government agencies, they're actually not going to contact you by phone or text. And if you're ever in doubt, always phone the main phone number from their actual website. And you can report the texting scams and spam alerts to your wireless carrier. So forward the message to 7726 or spam. And if you are a victim, then you should file a complaint. Now, moving on to the next thing, avoiding the multi-factor authentication bypass. This is important. We're seeing this on an increase at the moment. And what they're doing is you get a text and they're saying, okay, do you want to accept? And then next minute, bam, you start getting tons of them. You get a call from IT support. You get told that there's a problem and that the only way to fix it is that you've got to approve it. And this is what we call multi-factor authentication fatigue. And it's one way that the hackers are getting past the multi-factor authentication. They know that people are protecting their accounts by putting MFA or multi-factor authentication in place. And what they do is that they become the man in the middle. So when you click on the link, what actually happens is that they direct you to a fake website. They get you to put in your credentials, and then you get a multi-factor authentication request. What then happens is that the bad guys get the code, you get the multi-factor authentication code, and guess what? You get a redirect saying your password failed and try again. So at the end of the day, what they're doing is that they've got your multi-factor authentication, they've got your password, now they can get access to the keys to the kingdom. So never approve an unexpected push notification. Never give your multi-factor authentication codes to anybody. Again, avoid free and public internet. Always use your hotspot or connected to your home network or your business network. And I can't stress this enough. Do not use non-work related computers to access any type of protected resources. It should always be from a company-issued lockdown computer. Do not click on links from an email. No, you can hover over it. You can copy and paste it. You can actually copy and paste it into WordPad to see what it really is if you want to double check. So protecting personal information. Employee information, payroll data, contracts, tax files, loan applications, credit card, bank information, anything that's on your computer, most Windows 10, especially Windows 10 professional machines, come with BitLocker. And you should be able to enable encryption so that if your computer gets stolen, it basically locks your machine down and it unlocks you when you log into your computer. But if the bad guys get it, you lose your laptop, it gets stolen, you stop for 10 minutes. If you get phished, if there's personal information on your computer, that's going to be exposed. So having BitLocker drive encryption, we do have a video on how to check that, and I can send that out to everybody. You've just got to remember that if you've got BitLocker drive encryption enabled, you've got to safely secure that encryption key, because if you lose it, you'll also never get access to your data. So encryption is important, but you've also got to follow the protocol. If you lose that key, you'll be locked out of your computer as well. So moving on to the next thing, knowing if you've been hacked. Well, how do you know? There's some signs. Now, the guys are getting clever about it, but if your password gets randomly reset, that's a red alert. Something's going on. If your email signature suddenly gets updated, you've got a new phone number, a business name changes, a new title, you start getting tons of spam, you start getting tons of pop-up messages on your computer. Those are some of the obvious things, and you want to get that addressed straight away. If you go to emails and you notice sent items that you didn't send, then you know that you've been compromised. So what's next? Well, we all know understanding all of this is going to be hard. So what are you doing about it? One of the things that we can do is we can do a cyber security risk that would analyze your network to see if your network is secure. You can get that from our website at impresscomputers.tech. And we wouldn't need admin credentials. We don't need to install anything. We're just going to simply analyze your security. We're also going to recommend that you do a dark web scan, and that would let you know if your credentials are out there. Now, you can't remove the information that's on the dark web scan, but you can definitely know, my credentials are out there. I need to do something about it. Let me go ahead and change my password. So if you would like a free cybersecurity risk, you can sign up at the end of this. And at this point, I'm going to open it up to any questions. And I do have one question here. It says, will the presentation be available after the fact? Yes, we are going to make this available. We are recording it, and we're going to make it available to everybody. So if you want to open up your mic or post it in the chat, I'm going to be open to any questions that you do have. That might be related to phishing, could be related to how to deal with pop-ups. If you've got any questions on how to protect your data in any way, I'm opening that up to the floor at the moment. All right. Well, I hope that you've all enjoyed this brief webinar on how to protect yourself against what's out there. We know that things are definitely on the increase, and we're definitely vulnerable. The hackers are coming at us in full force, and you've just got to follow those simple things. Don't click on links. Don't click on attachments. Enable multi-factor authentication, and treat your cell phone as another vulnerable device. Don't click on links when you get a cell phone message as a text, and never give out any personal information unless you've verified who that person is. And the scammers are getting more and more clever, and we've just got to be on the lookout. So stay safe, everybody. And if that's it, it'll be next month. We're going to be covering more ways on how to protect yourself against the bad guys. Let's all go out there and be safe. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Roland. Appreciate it.
And just as a reminder, we will have this recording out for everybody, and we'll email that out after we've got the recording back. Thanks, and have a great day.